The Irina method course is designed to show the way I've worked on chess in order to progress and become the international master 2400 rated I am today. The course will provide the viewers with many opening ideas, structures, and chess concepts. There are three main parts of the course: how I progressed from 2100 to 2300 by playing only sidelines. Then the second part is about how I revolutioned my chess by studying classics and the main lines. And the final and the third part is about how to mix playing both sidelines and main lines. After completing the course, the viewers should be able to use the presented ideas both in openings and different kind of structures. And one should be able to use my method of studying chess in order to continue working on it by themselves and making progress. Playing sidelines has its ups and downs. On one hand, one uses less time for studying the theory, having more time for deepening the other aspects of his chess. On the other hand, the engine era kind of compromises the use of sidelines all the time. One can simply get a bad position out of the opening if his opponent is super prepared. I believe that one needs playing sidelines from time to time in order to make use of the surprise element. My advice is not to jump straight into playing main lines. Start by playing sidelines, which will buy you more time for a proper learning of the main lines and the classics. Studying this opening, one will be introduced to the closed center pawn structure. We will see the ideas and plans in this kind of positions. Let's define the kid structures. Kid comes from King's Indian. So the kid structure would be, like many of you might know, d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, basically fianchetting the bishop, knight c3, d6, with the following plan of making a short castle, knight b2, d7, and e5. So the reversed kid is trying to make the same plan when playing white. It is a weapon used versus the Sicilian with 2e6, and versus the French. We will start by seeing one game of mine, which I played quite many years ago. But as I said in the description of the chapter, this is a sideline I used to play in the beginning of my career in order not to have too much theory to learn. So let's see the game. e4, c5, knight f3, e6. Black wants to play Paulsen. Many times d3 comes as a surprise for the players who play this with black, because well, they want to have an open position, and d3 basically makes it much harder for them to get, as it will be a closed structured game. d3, d5. He now wants to take on e4, so we have to play either knight bd2 or queen e2. I recommend the queen e2 variation. Knight f6, g3, following the plan of fianchetting our bishop to g2. Knight c6, bishop g2, bishop e7, short castle. Now black has more options. One of it is to play immediately short castle. And the other options are linked to playing b6 or b5, waiting with the castle a little bit, and maybe even castling on the long side, on the queen side. Let's see the first plan of making a short castle. Only after this, white must play e5. We close partially the center, and our idea is to play afterwards rook e1, h4, bishop f4, or immediately knight d2, knight f1, knight h2, knight g4, and only afterwards bishop f4. So we are basically cutting the board into two parts, and we are trying to create an attack on the king side. Knight d7. Here I played the move c3. Well, it is a bit slow, and it doesn't go in this concrete position very well with queen e2. It goes better with the plan with the queen on d1 and the knight on d2. The more modern approach in this position is to play c4. We kind of want black to define the structure, so if he would play here d4, then the center, we can say that it is closed now, and we will have a very good square for our knight from b1 to go on e4 at some point, maybe after playing bishop f4, defending the pawn on e5. So c4 maybe is a more interesting move, which I recommend, because after knight b6 we play b3, and basically black will have to do something with the pawn on d5 at some point, to either take on c4 or play d4. Well, in this particular game I chose to play c3, keeping the pawn structure flexible. He played queen c7, threatening my pawn on e5. I had to defend it by rook e1, which is, like I said before, part of my plan. And okay, we know that white's plan is to attack black's king. What should black do in this position is to try to create an attack on the queen side by playing moves like b4, b5, a5, then bishop a6, b4. But it will take quite a long time, and we will most possibly be in time for making our attack dangerous. In the game he chose to play b6, which is a bit slow. Let's check the variation I told before with b5. I will play h4, a5, bishop f4. Sometimes it is better to keep the bishop on c1, so that it would defend the b2 square in an event of black playing b4 and then taking on c3 and playing rook b8, trying to occupy the b file. But here I have time to play bishop f4, bishop a6, and knight bd2. Well, after knight b6, white might have little problems. So maybe actually I would prefer to play directly knight bd2, so that after bishop a6, knight f1, b4, knight a3, knight 1 to h2, b takes, rook a b8, let's say, and now h5, threatening h6, and then knight g4, and then maybe with some threats of bishop g5, coming to control also the f6 square. So b5 would have been a better option for black, of course. Let's see why the slow plan with b6 doesn't work so well. I played h4, rook e8, h5, threatening to play h6 and to weaken black's dark squares. He played bishop f8. Of course, h6 would have been an option now, but there is no need to hurry with it, because if black will play h6 himself, then it will become a potential target. When our knight comes on g4, we will have possibilities of sacrificing some light piece on that square. I played knight bd2. And here my opponent played g6. Well, it is quite unnecessary for black to weaken his position on the king side. It's actually white's job to make this happen. Of course, I can understand the decision. He was scared of maybe my threat of playing h6. This is actually what happens many times in this opening. Black gets scared of white's attack on the king side and start taking some irrational decisions. It was more natural to try to develop his last piece, bishop a6, and then trying to create some counter-attack with the b5, b4 plan. Well, he played g6. I took, of course. Now it would make no sense to take with the h-pawn on g6, because this would open the h-file, and maybe sometimes I will have plans like playing bishop h3, then bishop g4, king g2, and rook h1. Creating threats over the h-file. So this is why he took with the f-pawn. I played knight f1. Nothing can stop me from making my own plan of bringing the knight to g4. Now, after he played g6, it is even better because the squares h6 and f6 are very weak, and knight from g4 will control them very well. Bishop g7, attacking the e5 pawn, so I have to play d4. C takes. So the pawn structure in the center is finally defined. The center is closed. You can see that black has 3 islands of pawns, hg, ed, and ba, while we have only 2 islands of pawns, which means that our structure is more healthy and sound. He played knight b4 here, creating the threat of the fork. I played bishop e3, making use of some small trick. If knight c2 now, then rook a c1, and the queen and the knight are pinned, and black loses his knight, so he cannot play knight c2 immediately. He had to play bishop a6, queen d2. Now again, at knight c2 we have rook c1. He had to play knight d3, rook e d1, rook a c8, trying to occupy the c file. And now I had a very good move I did not see during the game. Knight 1 to h2, uncovering the f1 square for my bishop and threatening to make a very unpleasant pin. It would have actually won the piece and the game much more easily, but then we could not see all white's plans coming to life. So let's see, I played knight e1, knight takes, rook takes, queen c6, rook a to c1. As I said before, my structure is better, so it is convenient for me to change the heavy pieces, the rooks and the queens. Queen a4, b3, queen a3, bishop h3. You see the e6 pawn is very weak and the bishop threats it. Now black will lose the control over the c file because the rook on e8 cannot go away. He played knight f8, defending the pawn on e6. Now the knight on f1 does nothing, so I had to follow my plan to bring it to a better position. Knight h2, queen e7, knight g4. Making use now of the weak squares, h6 and f6, the dark squares. Knight d7, bishop g5, pressing even more on the dark squares. Queen f7. Now I can exchange a pair of rooks, rook c8, and offer another exchange, rook c1. Of course he cannot take it because I would take with the queen and then my queen will enter into the back ranks. He played h5, trying to get rid of this unpleasant knight. Here I made some intermediate moves, rook takes c8, bishop c8, queen c2, threatening the bishop on c8, bishop a6, knight h6 check, winning the pair of bishop. Now there are various threats in this position. White's queen wants to enter the back ranks in black's position and start to create threats over the e6 pawn. The bishops are very strong in this position where there are many weaknesses. He played king h7, bishop g5, knight f8, queen c6, bishop d3, queen d6. Now you can see that the knight cannot move from f8 because the e6 pawn is hanging. It is attacked by both queen and bishop. Bishop f5, trying to exchange it, but of course we do not want it, so bishop f1, bishop e4, threatening queen f3. So this is why I played f4 here. Bishop f5, bishop e2, some consolidating moves, king g8, bishop h6. Now the king cannot also move because the knight on f8 is hanging. Bishop b1, a3, bishop c2, b4, bishop a4. And now I just started to take material. Bishop f8, queen f8, and queen takes c6, winning a pawn. And after queen f7, king f7, I am left with a pawn up and a decisive advantage, which is quite easy to convert. As you can see, I'm just creating a passed pawn. And after f5, g takes, bishop g2, bishop g4, it is just a matter of time. Bishop f3. Now if black's bishop goes away, I just win the second pawn and the position is totally winning, so black resigned. So let's make a few conclusions after this game. Basically, in these reversed kit setups, we must wait for the black kings to castle first and only afterwards to play e5, partially closing the center, cutting the board into two parts, and preparing an attack on the king side. The second conclusion is that white should try to weaken black's structure by any means, sometimes playing bishop g5 even, in order to make h6 happen. Then we can go away with the bishop and the pawn on h6 will become a weak spot. And the third conclusion is that one must finish his development first and only then start taking some big actions. So you could see that I tried to develop all of my pieces the minor one, then making a castle, and only afterwards I launched actually the attack on the king side. Let's continue to the next game to see some more ideas in these reversed keyed structures. Let's see the next game where I used the same keyed variation, but this time not against the Sicilian, but against the French defense. e4, e6. I played d3 here. You see that I try to go in the same kind of positions. It can be played both starting with the d3 move and with the queen e2 move, going the same way. So d3, c5, knight f3, d5, queen e2. We are basically in the same position we were in the last game. Oh, here I want to say that in this game my opponent did not play the French defense before, so I thought that maybe she prepared some variation in the opening. I usually play the d4 knight c3 French, so I chose to surprise her by playing on the second move d3. So you can see that the sidelines are quite useful even now when I'm an international master. Knight f6, g3, knight c6, bishop g2. We are following the plan which we saw in the previous game. Bishop e7, short castle. If you remember, I told you that black has a few plans here. One to make the short castle immediately, which we analyzed in the previous game. The other one is to try to keep the king in the center and maybe even to castle it on the long side. So she played b6. It is good enough to play e5 here, even if she did not castle, because I have enough time to control black's eventual ideas of g5. So after knight d7, he wants to play g5. So I have time to play h4, and I'm quick enough. He cannot play g5 anymore. So this is an important point actually. Every time after each move your opponent makes, you should ask yourself, what is the idea of his last move? What does he want to play? And then you must do all you can in order to prevent it. So in this particular position he wanted to play g5 and we played h4 in order to prevent it. She continued with bishop a6, c3. You see again, as I referred in the previous game, that I really like this flexible pawn structure, because now if black wants to play c4, I can go with d4. If he plays d4, then I can go with c4. And I close the center in any of these variations. So I can just follow my plan and not worry about the actions in the center. She played h6. What does she want? g5. This is the main reason I play h5 by myself. Now g5 is not such a great idea because I just take and play c4. Creating threats over the d5 square, and you can see that black's central pawn structure is not so strong now as the pawn on f7 is gone. This is why she played queen c7. What does she want? She wants to take the pawn on e5, so I play rook e1 defending it. Long castle and knight a3. Well, this move is not taken out of our previous plan, where if you remember the knight did go to d2, then f1, h2 and g4. Now, as black's king is not on the king side anymore, but on the queen side, it doesn't make sense to bring the knight to g4. And better place for it is actually on c2. from which he will be able to control pushing both b pawn and the d pawn in some cases. And actually we will try to attack on the queen side now, so we have to keep as many pieces as possible on that side. She played c4, d4, as I mentioned before, we lock up the center, rook d to e8. She's preparing some actions on the king side, something linked with f6 maybe. So here I found a very interesting move, b4. Black obviously cannot take on b3 because the bishop on a6 is hanging. And also f6 is no longer possible because of b5, making a fork to the bishop and the knight. Now she has to either go bishop b7 or knight b8. Bishop b7 is not possible due to some knight b5 threats. So she played knight d8, knight c2. The knight is very happy on this square. g5, trying to launch an attack on our king. But of course I am not taking on g6 en passant, because I would unnecessarily open up the f-file, and maybe she will have some ideas of pushing h5, h4, opening the h-file. So why do I need to risk when I can simply play knight e3 and prevent black from playing g4. Also, my knight can go itself on g4, a very comfortable square, from which he will attack on h6, and also he will control the f6 square. Well, she played f5, trying to open up the position even more. E takes, knight takes. Now you can see that by the move f5, the e5 square got weakened, and we can control it with our knight. Also, the pawn on e6 is the potential weakness, which we will try to attack. Knight e5, making the threat of knight g6. She goes away with the bishop, bishop d6, wanting to take my knight. Knight f1, defending the knight with both the queen and rook. Rook h to g8. Now she wants maybe to prepare g4 in some positions. Anyhow, we find that our knight on f1 is not so well placed, and what would be the best square for it? Of course, g4. So finally our knight goes to g4 anyways. Knight h2. King b8, some prophylactical move. a4. Now as our center is stable and black has nothing better to do than to wait, we have no reasons to hurry to take some immediate actions. We can slowly improve the position of all our pieces, also gain some space on the queen side, prepare some preparing some attacks with b5 and a5, trying to open the a file, which will make the black's king a bit worried. She played queen g7, bishop f3, taking even more control of the g4 square and preparing some exchanges. g4, this is agony. On the other hand, black has absolutely no plans in this position. He can just wait for me to make the final blow. So she actually decided to give away a pawn, trying to open up the g file and hoping for me to make a mistake. I took the pawn on g4. Why not to take it if it is free? Knight takes, the pawn on h6 is hanging now. Both the bishop and the knight are attacking it. She had to defend it by knight f7. Now having material up, it is convenient for me to exchange as many pieces as possible. So knight e5, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop e7, bishop g2, just in case, rook e to f8, bishop e3. Now with some variations, I tried to play b5 and afterwards a5, distressing this pawn on b6. She cannot take the pawn on e5 because of bishop f4, pinning the queen to the king and actually winning it. So she played bishop c8, b5, repairing the a5 move. She played queen g4, as she started to be afraid of the attack on the queen side. Okay, exchanges are favorable for white, so no reason not to take it. And win one more pawn actually. Rook to h8, bishop e3. If she would take on h5, I would have this unpleasant bishop f3 move, winning an exchange. So she played bishop c5. I played bishop f3, an intermediate move, rook g to g8, king g2. Here I am already 2 pawns up and black's position is actually hopeless. We can see a few more moves, bishop d7, a5, bishop e8. She was not able to take on b5 because of rook a to b1, and the pawn on b6 will actually fall when the bishop retreats. She played bishop e8, then a takes, bishop take, rook a6, king to b7, rook e to a1, making the threat of mate by rook a7, then rook a8, making a few moves. She had to take on b5, rook a7, king c6, rook to e7, threatening the pawn, king to c5, rook takes c6, again the threat of mate with rook a7 and rook c7, or rook d7 and rook d5, which would be actually quite unpleasant as well. She had to play d4. Now I calculated exactly a few moves just to make sure that I win with not too much stress. Rook d6, d takes c3, rook d5 check. She cannot go on b4 because of rook b1 check, and when the king goes away, I just take the bishop on b5. So she played king c6, followed by rook b1 anyways. And now the bishop cannot retreat because of rook d6 and some mates will follow. And after rook f8, okay, I'm not sure what was her trap if I took on b5, but bishop e4 is more than enough also to win. So, you saw another plan in the kid's structure if black doesn't castle immediately on the king's side and prefers to keep the king in the center only to castle afterwards on the queen side. The conclusions are: one should always ask himself, what does his opponent want after each move he makes, and if possible to try to prevent black's plans. The second conclusion is that when having a closed center pawn structure, one should take action on one of the flanks, preferably on the one where your opponent has castled. And the third conclusion is that when having a better position, do not hurry. Try to improve the position of every piece first, and only then take some immediate or extreme actions. Well, you can find more games of mine in the database on the kids, but these two games have covered the most important things to know in the kid. So basically, we are closing the center and only afterwards trying to attack on the flank where the king has castled. This is the main thing we should remember. We just try to bring the pieces to the flank where the black king has stabled itself. I hope that you will be able to use the kit, and we will come back to it some time later during this coin.